Creepypastas has been a huge part of the internet, dating back from the late 1990s when computers and smart techie Bill Gates stuff were slowly rising. Though they weren't as mainstream as today, but in the late 2000s and early 2010s, that's when they started getting popular. They took the wondrous, innocent internet by storm due to their long and incredibly detailed creepy stories created by people who had a lot of time in their hands, in which they talk about supposed scary and creepy incidents in real life. This would soon evolve into video games, in which we call gaming creepypastas. Of course, big hit game companies like Nintendo, Sega, and Rockstar Games were the companies that were vulnerable enough to have random people make spooky stuff about their games. Most creepypastas were bogus, but it still made a huge community just for this one topic. A new decade has begun, which means I will be listing the gaming creepypastas of the past decade that were, in my opinion, the creepiest. It won't necessarily mean that it'll make you say egads, but note that this list will not be in any type of order. In 2010, someone posted online a story about how the game Pokemon Red and Green was the cause of 100 child suicides in Japan in the spring of 1996, which was not too long after the game's release. In Pokemon Red and Green, there was a creepy and unsettling town which was supposed to be the only creepy map in the game. I can see why, since it's a really small town and due to its population, which shows that there are barely any people there when you enter it, which makes it a little lifeless. The town also has a big cemetery that can be seen on the top right corner of the map. Apparently this cemetery is actually for the dead Pokemon, which is a bit creepy and sad if you think about it. Now this is the part where it gets creepy when you play this game. Whenever you enter Lavender Town, you'll hear the town music, which is probably one of the creepiest themes in Pokemon history. Yeah, it's a creepy song. The original music was produced with an incredibly high-pitched tune with high-pitched sounds and frequencies. Apparently the highest frequency in the music can only be heard by children due to their ears being more sensitive than the ears of an adult. So it was said that this theme alone was a syndrome since it caused all sorts of symptoms and illnesses. This would lead to the suicides of many children. The music was fixed and now children cannot get affected by it anymore. But like most creepypastas, this was just a fake story, but due to its popularity, it was quick enough to turn into an urban legend. Over time, people added more and more things to the story to make it more believable and interesting, but it was still disturbing and creepy, especially the Lavender Town theme itself. Sonic R was a racing game released for the Sega Saturn console, which if you didn't know, the Sega Saturn was infamous for being a really bad gaming console with really bad games on it. The Sega Saturn also had weird commercials where it featured their own character, Segata Sanshiro, to advertise their console. Yeah, anyways, you can already tell that Sonic R was gonna be a bad game, and it was, due to its terrible controls and game mechanics alongside glitchy graphics. In it, you can play as the classic Sonic characters like Sonic himself, Knuckles, Tails, and some other animals. You could play the additional characters, which would be different versions of the characters like Metal Sonic. There were also doll versions of the characters too, like Tails' doll, but if you take a look at it, you might get why this became a creepypasta. It just looks weird, creepy, and emotionless, especially its widely open eyes that could give you the heebie-jeebies if it ever stared at you. A lot of people also believe that the Tails doll was a cursed character and that it would curse you in real life, but that doesn't seem true. Now, the creepypasta goes like this. A man returned home from a busy day at work. He had bought a new game for his son. It was Sonic R. The boy was happily surprised and was impatient to play the game. His son had an unpopular opinion about the game and he loved every single thing about it that he couldn't stop playing it. But then one day, he beat the game while his dad came in to congratulate him. But on the TV screen was the Tails doll, who was also congratulating the player. The dad thought that the Tails doll was unsettling. The same night, the man went to go play the game after his son went to sleep. He found out that the Tails doll was now a playable character since his son had been in the game, and so he chose it. He then played a game mode in which two characters try to catch each other. The man was chasing Sonic, and when he caught him, the screen turned black, which shut down the console. After this, the man just went upstairs to his room to sleep, until he heard a strange noise downstairs. He went to go check while he noticed a still shadow that was visible from under the door of his room. He was anxious to find out what it was, as he was sweating from every body part, making him wet. He then nervously opened the door, only to find out that it was his imagination. But immediately after that, the same exact Tails doll from the game showed up in a pool of his son's own blood and other fluids that you don't even want to know. Then the Tails doll said to him in a deep voice, "You're coming with it forever." The story might not be the scariest thing I've ever heard, but I thought that the Tails doll helped this creepypasta to be creepy. So that's that, I guess. You probably never heard of the game The Theater if you haven't heard about its creepypasta. It was an old PC game created by Salidia Software, a company that made educational games. Though The Theater didn't seem educational as it remained questionable. It didn't have a lot to it since it looked unfinished. It was released near the time the original Doom was released, which was in 1993. The original versions of it are hard to find these days since it's deeply buried online by the terrible bootleg versions of the game. But if you manage to find the original, it wouldn't install properly on your computer. Once you open the game, you'll find yourself a menu with a vintage theater in the background with 3 items: option, load, and new game. You can only click new game since clicking the others will just crash the game. Once you're in it, you'll spawn in the lobby of the theater in a first-person perspective. As you walk through the hall, you can see a pixelated faceless person known as the ticket taker, standing in front of the dark entrance that leads to the theater room. When you go near him, he'll say, "Thank you and enjoy the movie," a foreshadowing of what's to come. When you enter the dark hallway, you're back at the beginning of the lobby, having to repeat the same process over and over again. But as you continue to play the game, the ticket taker will soon disappear. As you continue to walk through the dark hallway, the same repeating cycle will eventually stop. And guess what happens? Nothing. But eventually the ticket taker returns, appearing out of nowhere. His head now has a hypnosis spiral swirly thingy, which is apparently the part where people claim that they felt physical pain in their bodies. Then you'll start to hear high-pitched and blaring sounds, which then leads to the game glitching, bringing you back to the beginning of the lobby, repeating the same cycle again and again. What makes this creepypasta interesting is that the original copies of the game are very rare, even though they actually exist. Nobody knows what happened to them, which makes this creepypasta a mystery. But the story is really detailed and well written, and I think it deserves more attention than other creepypastas. This is one of the most classic and well-written Mario creepypastas out there, as this one is actually a true story. In fact, you could actually do what the person did in the story. It's disturbing and twisted in many ways that you'll soon understand. The story starts off with a person that was just messing around and chatting with people online in Super Mario World Central, which is a site that is home to a lot of Super Mario ROM hacks. He was sorting out the hacks in the site and organizing them by date until he had found a hack named Mario in all caps. Not only the name of the hack was weird, but the description of it was also unusual. The description is as stated. As you play the role of Super Mario Plumber, verify that you are beautiful Princesa Tozuturu. Again, Bowser kidnapped the evil king. It is your job to save her. This hack includes 6 levels of very long. This is what made him to believe that this hack was just going to be horribly bad and not good, just like the others. But of course this is a creepypasta, so he was wrong. When he launched the mysterious hack, it opened 2 files. One text file named 3007014 and an IPS file that was named Mario. He opened the text file only to find out that it was just full of random symbols, with the addition of the only visible English phrase, "Find me, find me, find me." The person thought that the father of the hack tried to paste the game data into a text file, but the person was too interested in the hack that he had to play it. When playing the game, he noticed a lot of things that were odd. Well, duh, it's a hack. He noticed that from the notes, it looked like that instead of Bowser being a threat level dragon villain, it was Mario. At the beginning, there were just messages with random numbers, but later on, there would be strange messages like, I hate you. When he reached the Yoshi's Island 2 level in the game, the beautiful colors that were in the game were gone, and this is where Yoshi started communicating to Mario using the message boxes. When the person freed Yoshi from an egg, Yoshi then tells Mario that he had trapped him inside the egg. Later on in the game, the levels get more strange. At one point, Mario kills Yoshi and the player gets a message that reads, "This is the selfish way out." When the person reaches the end of the game, he enters a pipe which leads to a dark room where the person won't be able to move the character or quit the game. This then crashes the game, and that's when the person who was playing the game finally understood the whole point of the hack. He believed that Mario was atoning for his wrongdoings, as he was the villain. Also, if you convert the text file from the hack to a JPEG file, you'll get this innocent looking image, which is actually a photoshopped fruit, and that's why it's innocent. Ben Drowned is a well-written and detailed creepypasta with a brilliantly clever story that's almost flawless. It's fake, but it's definitely one of the creepypastas that's worth reading even though the whole story is really long. Not only is it well written, but it provides amazingly produced videos that show the events in the story to try to make it believable. However, most creepypastas don't do that. For a creepypasta like this, it's pretty overwhelming. The story is way too long, so I'll just briefly summarize it in the shortest way possible. Ben Drowned is written by Alex Hall, aka Jaduzable. It tells the story about a guy who bought a scuffed version of Majora's Mask. Not only is it scuffed, but it's also haunted. So when the guy played it, a lot of strange and creepy phenomenons happened in the game. And that's basically it. There isn't much evidence for this story to be true, but the creepypasta is still creepy and it's awesomely made. Well, those are my top gaming creepypastas of the past decade, and I chose 5 because I did not want to make this video any longer. So I just went through all my favorite ones and chose the best ones. I actually felt a bit nostalgic going through these because I used to remember watching so many videos about these